So our speaker today is Dave Kelly. Dave Kelly is a professional speaker, trainer, author, and coach. He has spoken and trained professionally more than 600 times for over 350 different colleges and universities during his career, including more than 250 virtual presentations. He's the author of 3 books on leadership and motivation. Dave was inducted as a member of Alpha Lambda Delta at the University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh, and served as a chapter secretary. He has been a leader in student government and organizations such as Circle K International, where he served a term as international president. He's an award-winning advisor and is involved in the community through his Kiwanis clubs. He is the national coordinator of APCA Serves, the community engagement initiative of the Association for the Promotion of Campus Activities, and was named as the APCA Campus Speaker of the Year for 2019 and 2022. So let's welcome Dave Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I do really appreciate that. I appreciate that introduction, Michaela, and the update on my award. I just got another one 2 weeks ago, and I was totally surprised. So isn't that wonderful when great things happen to you in leadership, that surprises can come along? I'm really thrilled to be here with you. As you heard, I was a member of ALD at the University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh. That is a real place, by the way. And it was so great when Eileen and Trish reached out to me. I had the opportunity to speak for the chapter at Northwestern State University in Louisiana, October of 2020. Did it virtually because, of course, we were in the midst of the pandemic fully at that point. And Eileen participated and got back with me and asked me if I'd participate in this summit. And I said, of course I would, because I loved the opportunity to be a part of ALD. It's something that I talk about with students. And the value not only of ALD, but of course all honor societies and what they can really mean for you. And I'm just thrilled with seeing how active you are. It's a little bit different than the way our chapter functioned, and I love it. And just so great to see everything. Now, I'm a handout guy. I have to admit that. And so I've created a very impact light handout for you. I just posted a link to it in the chat if you'd like to grab that. You can also get it from the QR code. And for those of you watching the recording, we want to think about you too. You can pause right here, hold up a device with a camera, and use that QR code just like you do in a restaurant nowadays. And that will give you the handout. It is a fillable PDF, so it's something you can type in on a device. So if you want to just sit back and enjoy what I'm saying here, grab that handout, save it for later, come back and watch the recording, and you can get a feel of the fill-ins. But there's also a few things that I'm going to give you a little bit of a homework to work on in your chapter after we're done here today. I have loved the opportunity to be able to speak with schools all over the country for the past 17 years. The last 2 years, most of it's been virtual. And one of my very first programs that I did in the fall of 2020 was for a school in California, Moreno Valley College. And their advisor, their student activities director, said to the group, which was all of their clubs and organizations on campus, we're still in business. We're just doing business differently. And isn't that the reality of leadership? We are always doing business differently. As you just heard Eileen mention, this new tool that you have, the scrapbook resource, something that, wow, we could have thought about before, but we have it now. And so we're always evolving and always growing. And as I mentioned, the level of activity is so much greater that I see from the ALD chapters, the one at Northwestern, because I know their advisor well, and from what I've been hearing as I've been listening to you this afternoon, different than when I was in school. Now, we have a lot of advantages that you have a lot of advantages that we didn't have. I was in college BC, before computers. And so we didn't have the internet and all of these other opportunities to be able to interact with each other. So I'm really glad that you do, and I want to encourage you to take advantage of that. And even during this time, as we're coming back, hopefully fully into being fully engaged on our campuses, let's not forget some of the good things that we've learned these last couple of years that we can continue to do. I'm here to talk to you about leadership. I know this is a time of transition. And during my time as a student leader and as a state advisor for CKI, we worked a lot with transitions. And I'm going to give you some nuts and bolts here today, but I want to give you a few thoughts also for those of you who are new student leaders. Maybe you've never been in a leadership role before. And I want to tell you what the main thing about finding your purpose as a leader is building your confidence. And to me, this image, and I have to give credit to my wife because she finds all these wonderful images for me. The kitten seeing itself in the mirror as a lion. That's the potential that you have as a leader this year coming up in ALD. And I encourage you to fully engage with that. I enjoyed my time as a chapter secretary. There was opportunity to work with the other officers, other people in our chapter, other people on campus. We did community service, all things that I love doing. And so I really encourage you to fully engage and enjoy this opportunity and take advantage of the opportunities presented to you, like today, by the ALD National Office. And if you're watching this recording, again, that's another opportunity that's being presented for you. And for those of you who maybe have officers who aren't here today, you can encourage them to come back and watch this recording. So it's about building that confidence. And what I want to do is share some thoughts with you that I think can help you to build that confidence so that you can confidently come into your chapter meetings, your exec board, all the things that you're going to be doing this year, and also promoting your organization, your chapter on campus. Vision is such an important thing for the year. Knowing what your vision is and what you want it to be, where you want to go. When I became the state advisor for CKI, we call that position district administrator, I had a vision to make our district the best in all of Circle K International. At that time, there were 30. And over the 9 years that I was in that role, a volunteer role, we won more awards at our international conventions than any other district. And so as some sort of an objective measure, I would say we achieved that vision and we grew tremendously during that period of time in recruitment, in service hours, and philanthropy, and the things that we did. Now, on the handout, I've given you some space to think about and make some notes about your vision. So I'm going to encourage you to do that. That's homework item number 1 that I'm going to encourage you to do. But as I'm talking, if something sparks in your head, write it down on that handout. Or if you've got a piece of paper, feel free to write that down so that you can look back at it later on and say, this is what Dave was talking about. Here's how I want to flesh that vision out. And it can be as simple as what I said, to be the best district in all of Circle K International. Maybe you want to be the best club or organization on your campus. Maybe you want to be the best chapter in your ALD region or nationally. These are all visions that you can have. Take that and help and work with the other members of your board and chapter members who want to participate to create a vision that'll motivate and inspire them to have a wonderful year, to do all the things that it is that you're looking to do. And by bringing other people into it, it helps because people tend to support that which they help create. So getting other people involved in that vision is real important. Now, the realization of that vision is going to come about through goals. Goals are what we do to harness the moon, which is to grab that vision. So what I want you to do, if you're following along on the handout, you're going to have a fill in here, a keyword, a couple keywords that I'd like for you to think about. They're in red and they're bolded, and you can write them in that space on the handout. Set big goals, recruitment goals, service hours, philanthropy, all the things that you want to do. When I was in high school, I was a member of Key Club. And we set a goal for our club, myself and the club president. We had about 20 members. For our senior year, we wanted to have 50. Now, we were in a small high school, less than 400 people. So what we did was we sat down and we wrote down the names of 50 people that we wanted to retarget and recruit into our Key Club. We didn't get to 50, but we did get to 48. So we felt pretty good about that number. And so we were able to actually go out and one-on-one market. So there is still that value of one-on-one marketing. In fact, that might be one of the old school things that you can do on your campus that others aren't doing. We've fallen into so much of, the technology and the Instagram, which are all great things, and let's keep doing that. But let's not diminish that personal touch that we use to bring people in and encourage them to be a part of this. If they qualify based on their GPA for that first year experience, for their first year of school, then they should be an ALD member. Why not? It's such a great opportunity and a great organization, and something that many years later, I'm still proud that I was a part of. So a few nuts and bolts. We're in transition time. So if you don't have the handout, make a few notes and maybe come back and watch the recording later if you want, so that you don't lose the thoughts I have here. The minutes are so important. And we get caught up, I think, at times of trying to write down everything that's being said in a meeting. That's not what the minutes are supposed to be. The minutes are a record of what happened, motions, votes, maybe a major discussion point, If there's something that or announcement that you want to make sure is in the record so that people can see that later on when they look at those minutes, these are things that will be tools that will help. They also help in the transition time. So collect those minutes that you have together, put it in a single folder, and share that with your new secretary and officers for the upcoming year. I'm also going to suggest that in addition to sharing that electronically, that you also make a physical copy of them. Now, before I give you a way of doing that, I want to give you another QR code. So I'm giving you a moment, grab your camera. If you don't know how to write minutes, which a lot of people don't, if you've never been a secretary, you've never done it before, this could be a real challenge for you. So I will encourage you to take a screenshot or go ahead and use your camera to open up to this. It gives you a template for writing your minutes. I created it years ago. I created it actually for student government, but I've updated it a little bit. So it's applicable to any club or organization. You can use this as a template form to put your minutes together each week and then write them out in whatever format you want to, but it'll give you all the key things like attendance and key motions and reports that you want to make sure that you capture in those minutes. So again, if you're watching the recording, you can pause here and you can go grab that and take a look at that. Otherwise, please get that, and it's free to you, and I plan to keep it up there for as long as my website exists, and maybe even longer. So when I talked about creating a physical thing, what am I talking about? I like notebook binders. Dave, we're in the 21st century. We don't do notebook binders. We should. Here's why. We all have electronic folders on our laptops that we have never looked at. I do it. You do it. I know we do. We want them. It's kind of like when you register for an event or a webinar or something, and you know you can't go live, but I'll get the recording and watch it later. And we don't always do that. It's that same sort of thing. If you hand something to someone physically, they're going to take a look at it. They're going to at least thumb through it and see what's in there. So I suggest creating a notebook binder, because then they can also add in their own pieces to either pass on for the next year or to have as a resource going through the course of their year. And what should go into that? Your bylaws. Those are something that you should have handy, something you should always have. Your school probably required a copy to be submitted when you were recognized. National office more than likely can provide you with something so that you can have that, so that somebody goes, well, wait a minute, I'm the treasurer. What exactly am I supposed to do? You can look in the bylaws or constitution, whatever documents you have. Sample meeting agendas. So any meeting agendas from the past year. Why would we do that? Because when they're looking at it and go, well, what were they doing the first week of October last year? Oh, they were planning for the Halloween Fall Festival on campus. We need to put that on our agenda. Don't reinvent the wheel. You can just go back and look at what was done before. Now, of course, bring in your own ideas, absolutely. But some of those big things, you don't want to get blindsided and all of a sudden a week beforehand go, oh, we forgot to plan this. Those meeting agendas provide that context for the course of the year. Budgets, calendar of the year's activities, again, providing that context, and who to contact for anything you need. On campus, at the national office, in the community. My Kiwanis Club does a big golf tournament every year. We have every member participates. We've been fortunate we've had the same chair for several years, but he's been doing this, keeping up all the contacts for catering, for donations, for sponsors, for everything, the golf course that we work with, so that each year when we come down to plan that golf tournament, he can say, all right, we had these 15 sponsors. Dave, you had these 3. Can you go back and recruit them again? It makes the process so much easier because we don't have to, again, try to invent that wheel. And with catering, we know what we've done in the past, who we've worked with, who we can go back to, what they provided, whether we liked it or not. He keeps up with all of that. And someday he's going to pass that responsibility on, and they're going to have a great resource. So make sure that you do this during the course of your year. So you're a new incoming officer, start this right now. If you're an outgoing officer, or if you're in touch with those outgoing officers, talk with them and say, hey, can you give me as much of this stuff as you have? Maybe they have it handy, they've got it all, but at least get as much as you can so you have that as a resource, and then start from here, day one, putting it together to hand to your successor next spring. I want to suggest that the outgoing officers and the new officers meet with each other. It shouldn't be just a matter of like, okay, here it is, I'm running out the door, and I've seen it happen. But it should be a case of getting together, talking about what happened this last year, what the results were, what was good, what didn't maybe work, all of those things, so that you have an idea as a new officer of what they maybe didn't finish, what you should be working on, things that were tried, but maybe they didn't work out. But now you go, wait a minute, I got a different spin on this. This is a great conversation. Ask the outgoing officer to be honest. If you're an outgoing officer, be honest about this. This is not a time of judgment or critique or criticism. It's about making sure that the success of your chapter continues and that it keeps going. I want to suggest that you give a copy of all these materials to the advisor. I know the advisors here are going, no, don't do that. But I want to suggest this why. When I was the district administrator for CKI in Georgia, we transitioned to April 1st every year, our chapter officers. And we had a big training session for them about a week later in the middle of the state in Macon, Georgia. And they would all come together to a campus that we had a chapter at, and we would do training and work with them. And we had all their contact information. Everything was great until the fall when we would come back. And we typically found from year to year, 20 to 25% of those officers were gone. They didn't come back to school. They fell off the grid. They lost interest, whatever it might have been. And the materials that they had were lost. So any of these materials, please give a copy to your advisor. Now, I think ALD people are probably maybe a little more dedicated when you get into those leadership roles, but things happen, as we have certainly seen the last couple of years. And I've worked with lots of different organizations who've had to regroup these last couple of years because students, for whatever reason, didn't come back to school or were no longer able to participate, whatever the situation might be. The advisor has this information, then they have it year to year. They can hopefully keep it on hand somewhere where it can be available to you as an archive. They are the glue that continues from year to year. Be focused and intentional with your transition time. This is your legacy. You want to see your ALD chapter continue to thrive and be successful, and to build upon the work that has been done in the past year and in previous years. So really think about this. And as you're coming in, new officers, you're building your legacy, the legacy that you're going to hand off come next spring. Now, how should we do that handoff? I want to suggest you have a little retreat. Get away somewhere. If you can do it in person, that's great. It could be someone's room in a residence hall, an apartment. It could be in a coffee shop, wherever you want to do it. It could be outside on campus as spring starts coming along and we're getting nicer weather, whatever you want to do. So figure out how you're going to do it and where you're going to do it. See what your campus has. Our chapter at Georgia State every year did this. They had, Georgia State owns a little log cabin retreat center, not on campus. It's actually on the other side of Atlanta. And so they would go there. And a few times I went and participated with them. And it was really great because they got off campus and they were able to really focus in on what they wanted to do for the next year. Go through all the roles and responsibilities of each person. Now, I suggest having the outgoing officers come and help with this part of the program so that we're all clear. Yeah, I heard one of the schools has like 12 members on their board. I heard USC, you have like 34 on your board or on your council. Wow, you got a lot of people. So maybe not everybody knows what everybody's supposed to do. So make sure that you get that information to everybody who's going to be participating. Have a goal setting session. Remember, I said people tend to support that which they help create. Goals are a big part of that. So you have your vision. What are the goals? Recruitment, retention, philanthropy, service, whatever it might be. You want to have goals, fundraising, goals for all of those things so that everybody knows what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish, and celebrate those goals as you achieve them. Now, it doesn't have to be just all stuffy. And even if you decide to do it virtually, there's team builders you can do. Activities and interactives where you can get people talking with each other and interacting. I encourage you to do this. This is a great way to you know, your members may have their own interactives that they've done in other environments, like camp, being a counselor. One of my student leaders one year, she had been a counselor every year at summer camp. We had some of the best interactives that year when she was governor, or top officer, because she brought these to us. Pass on all this stuff, binders, folders, flash drives, documents, whatever you got. This is a great time to do that handing off, because then we can also do an inventory and make sure of what we have. And lastly, you want to have really good content, but make sure it's fun. Because if it's not fun, what's the point of doing it? Now, before, as we were setting up for today and preparing for this, I gave Trish an Instagram question. And Trish, I don't know if you've had a chance to post that yet to Instagram, but if you want to and you want to post it here in the chat, I think that would be great. The
It
question,
is,
go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, so it's over on Instagram. Trish, if you could just prompt it in chat, and then we'd prefer everyone to go over Instagram if you can. And we are going to do a drawing.
I got just a little bit more, Eileen, if you don't mind. I just thought I would go ahead and throw that question out there.
Yep,
So,
go for it.
That's okay. I appreciate it. I should have gotten my wires on track and got with Trish on that earlier, but she's posted it here in the chat. And go to Instagram, absolutely, but don't leave me just yet. What is your biggest goal that you hope to accomplish this year? And I invite you to put that into the chat and maybe think about that as I share a little bit with you about my leadership journey to conclude. For me, I never really thought about being a leader. My leadership began with that key club organization that I was in high school. When I was a junior in high school in Wisconsin, in a small village, as I mentioned, a high school of less than 400 people. And then somewhere in the spring, our club president came in and said there was going to be a convention going on up in Green Bay and asked if anybody wanted to go. And I said, wow, that sounds like fun. I'd love to go to Green Bay. To me, it was a big city, and I have some money saved up. I'd saved this money up from a summer job on a farm. I had worked that job, and I'd saved that money up to take this girl to prom. But when I asked her to go with me, she turned me down. She was waiting for this other guy to ask her. And he never did. Ha! So she had to stay home, and I got to go to Green Bay. Well, when I got up there, I was totally blown away. There were over 600 high school students at this convention, more than my entire high school held. And that night, they put us into a meeting room where candidates for state office, for district office could come in and tell us what they would do if we would vote for them. And they were running for district-wide offices, but apparently there was also an election we had to do in our room to elect our representative. They called that position lieutenant governor. There were two groups in our room. Our group of high schools from kind of south central Wisconsin, south of Green Bay, about 7 or 8 high schools, and then one up further north. They had about 10 high schools on their side of the room. And in between the people coming in and running for the big offices, there was a guy on the other side of the room telling them what he would do if they would elect him to be their representative. There was nobody in front of our side of the room. And the guy running our meeting was just begging for somebody to run, and nobody was doing it. And after a while, my advisor nudged me and he said, hey, why don't you do it? I went, me? How can I do it? I don't even know what that thing is. How can I be on the state board when I've never been an officer in our club? But I thought about it and I realized I'll raise my hand. I'll say, I'll do it. They'll see I'm not any good and don't know anything, and somebody better will get elected. So I raised my hand and I said, I'll do it. And I learned a lesson about volunteering that night, that you tend to get what you volunteer for. Well, I went home and I just read all the books and manuals they gave me to do, and I did everything that were in them. And at the end of the year, they gave out 2 awards. We had 14 of those representative positions in our state. And they gave out 2 awards for the most outstanding lieutenant governors, and I was one of them. And then they had to pick one of us to be the nominee for the international award. And I got to be our nominee. And that year in Washington, D.C., in front of 3,000 people out of over 700 lieutenant governors in the whole organization, only 14 were named outstanding, and I was one of them. And it was great, and it was a wonderful experience. And it all happened because I said, I'll do it. You've done that if you're going to be a chapter leader this next year, and you never know where it's going to take you. I consider that moment when I raised my hand to be the pivotal moment in my life. Because you see, I went into the collegiate group, and as you heard in my introduction, I got to be international president of that group, along with several leadership roles on the way there. I got to travel to great places. I got to speak in front of 10,000 people in Vienna, Austria. That was pretty awesome. And then when I got out of school, I got into the business world, and I joined a local Kiwanis club to continue doing community service. And I became a state advisor here in Georgia, one of the assistant advisors. And I was at a training conference for Kiwanis in a small town called Griffin, Georgia in October of 1990. And there were about 500 Kiwanis members there. It was a Saturday morning, and they gave out some awards. They had some speakers. And after the session, people went to workshops. Well, our group, the students, didn't have anything to go to. I didn't have a meeting to go to. So I'm hanging out talking to the students. And as I'm doing that, this woman comes up she'd been in the back of the room. Now, we had seen her during the session because her club won an award, and she jumped up and down and she screamed and she cheered, and she was very excited that they had won this award. And she came up and started talking to one of our students. Apparently they had met at a previous event the week before. And after a few minutes, the student turned to me and he said, Dave, I'd like you to meet Dia. Dia, meet Dave. And in that moment, I met my wife. You never know where these pivotal moments are going to take you. I don't know what direction my life was going before that night in that hotel room in Green Bay, but it changed. And it's been all about leadership and service ever since. I love these goals that I've been seeing here in the chat as I was sharing that story with you. I love that you've put this thought into it, these visions, these goals. Share these with your chapter members so that they can see where it is you're going to go on this journey this year. And maybe somebody will step up and they'll say, I'll do it. And it'll be their pivotal moment. See, I think leadership is service. And I believe we can change the world by serving one life at a time. We can make a big difference as ALD members now and throughout our entire lives. If not for that I'll do it moment, I may have never joined my chapter at Oshkosh. I probably never would have volunteered or was nominated to be secretary. And all the other things that I did wouldn't have happened. So you never know where things are going to take you. So always be willing to raise your hand and say, I'll do it. Now, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to have those, answer those for you. I appreciate that. If you're thinking, wow, I wish I grabbed that handout at the beginning of the session, there it is again, the QR code. If you want to get it, I can also post that in the chat for you again. I'll have to grab it, the link, and put it there for you, but I can do that while we transition to questions. Last thing I want to offer for you is if you ever want to reach out to me, you've got a question, you're like, Dave, I loved your story. Here's my story. I'd love to hear your stories. Feel free. Here's my contact info. You can screenshot that if you want. That is my cell phone number. I know that's dangerous giving that out, but you can call me or text me. I use it for my business anyway, so I'm happy to talk with you. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. I know we didn't seem to have a lot of Facebook participation in that poll, but I post a lot of content there. And now that I see all of you on Instagram, I'm going to start posting more there too. So I'd love for it if you followed me. And anytime I can be of service, please let me know.